13 years ago, I was told my son died at birth. 2 days ago, a teenage boy I've never met looked me in the eye and asked why I gave him away. I don't know how to describe what that does to a man, but that can't be right because I don't have a son, the only child I had died. That is what I have been telling myself for the past 2 days. But it might not be the truth. My name is Harold. I'm 42 years old. I've been married to my wife, Vanessa, for almost 2 decades. And I've spent the last 13 years grieving the son who is looking very much alive. Let me start with some context. I wasn't there the night my son was born or the day he died. I've gone over every minute of that day, more times than I can count, trying to convince myself there wasn't anything else I could have done. My job had sent me out of state to an investor summit that had been locked in for months. Vanessa was 37 weeks along and everything had been stable. I thought we still had time, but babies don't care about schedules. I was in a hotel lobby when my phone rang. Vanessa's voice was shaky. Her water had broken. The ambulance was already on the way. I remember the way my heart dropped like the floor had vanished beneath me. I dropped everything, rushed to the airport, and tried to get on the next flight home. It was canceled. Thunderstorms, mechanical issues, something. I don't remember. All I remember is yelling at a gate agent while staring at my phone, knowing that my wife was giving birth to our child without me. By the time I walked into that hospital room the next day, everything was already over. Vanessa was pale and quiet, hooked up to machines. She didn't even look at me when I entered. My mother, Margaret, met me first, red-eyed and tight-lipped, her hand clutching my father, Ethan's like a lifeline. She told me that my son didn't make it. Those 4 words still ring like gunshots in my head. I couldn't believe it. Just like that, I lost my one chance to be a dad, something I had been dreaming of my entire life. I wanted nothing else than to have a happy family that loves me. They said it was a stillbirth. Complications during delivery. He didn't cry. He didn't breathe. Vanessa was unconscious for a long time afterward. They said it was all a blur. I didn't even get to hold him. There wasn't a funeral, no photos, nothing. Just the sterile white walls of a hospital and the quiet, dull ache that crept into my chest and never really left. Vanessa didn't speak much after that. When she finally did, she said she didn't want to talk about it, that the grief was too much. She boxed up the baby things without a word. I even had a name picked out, Harry, but we never said it again. I respected Vanessa's wishes not to talk about it again. I was hit pretty badly, and she was the one who grew this son in her body for months. We both were pretty devastated after that, and the fact that we didn't speak about it only made things worse. The truth is, this baby wasn't just a baby. He was our miracle. Vanessa and I had struggled to conceive for years. She had endometriosis. I had a low sperm count. The doctor said we could try IVF, but even that wasn't guaranteed. After years of false hopes and heartbreak, that pregnancy felt like our last shot. I think we both knew it. We were tired of trying and were about to give up. That is when she got pregnant. So, to us, it felt like God himself had given us one chance. And when we lost him, it felt like the universe had reached into my chest and ripped out every dream I'd ever had about being a father. I remember sitting alone in what was supposed to be the nursery, holding the tiny blue blanket we'd bought too early. I stared at the empty crib for hours. Every time I tried to move on, my brain would rewind to that hospital hallway, and the silence that greeted me instead of a newborn's cry. Grief changes you. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It whispered every morning when I made coffee for 2 and drank alone. It whispered every Christmas when we hung fewer decorations than the year before. It whispered every time I walked past a park full of dads holding their kids' hands. People told me to move on. I smiled and said that with time I was going to, but I never did. I just got better at hiding it. Vanessa never wanted to try again. I didn't blame her. We were both broken in different ways, and pretending we weren't became the unspoken agreement between us. It didn't really matter even if we tried. We both knew Harry was our last shot. It's been over 13 years since I lost him, and I still wake up thinking about the son I never had. So imagine going through all this, and one day a kid coming up to you, and claiming that he is your son and that you abandoned him. Would you even believe him? It happened 2 days ago at a little cafe I visit almost every morning. Nothing fancy, just a small place tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. The kind of spot where the barista knows your name and your coffee order. I've been going there for years. It's my quiet place where I sit by the window with a warm mug and try to clear my head before the day begins. That morning was no different. I had just picked up my coffee and settled into my usual seat near the back when a teenager approached my table. He looked a little hesitant to talk to me. He was kind of nervous. He asked if I was Harold. I told him I was. That's when he'd said something that made my stomach turn. He asked me why I had given him up. I could not understand what he was talking about. He said his name was Lucas and that he was my son. At first, I just stared at him. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel insulted. I told him that it was not possible. He said he was standing right in front of me. I told him he didn't understand and explained that my son had died the day he was born. I said that he must be confusing me for someone else. When I said this, Lucas kind of got mad. He told me that he was not expecting me to make up a lie like that. He said he had been adopted 13 years ago, and that he spent months digging through records, following names and dates until everything pointed back to me and Vanessa. His tone wasn't just defensive, it was angry, accusatory, like I had done something unspeakable and now I was pretending it never happened. I told him that what he was saying was impossible. My son was gone. I had mourned him, buried him in my heart, and tried to move forward. But Lucas wasn't listening. He pulled out a folder and showed me documents. Printouts of adoption files, legal forms, and hospital records with names blacked out in thick ink. It all looked real, and yet it felt unreal. How could he be my dead son? That was not really a possibility unless my wife, my parents, and even the nurses I met lied about my son. Who would you believe at this point? You'd think this kid had lost his mind, wouldn't you? I told him again that there had to be some mistake, that I had nothing to do with this, but he didn't believe me. He said I was just trying to protect myself, that I was trying to run away from the truth, that I had abandoned him because I didn't want to deal with the responsibility. He looked disgusted when he said it, like I was the villain in some story he had already written in his head. He said that he had always imagined me giving 1,000 explanations for why I did what I did, but he had never expected me to be such a coward that I would lie like this. And then he walked away. I didn't move from that seat for a long time. I just sat there watching my coffee go cold. I must have thought about a million possibilities, all of which told me that Lucas couldn't be my son. For a while, I tried to convince myself that it was just some strange mix-up. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he was lying. But he didn't look like he was lying. And the fact that he kind of looked like a younger me, with the same eyes, really messed things up. That night, I spoke with Vanessa. I didn't tell her about the kid. I just asked if she thought about our son. She said she thinks about it every day, but she refuses to let that one thing dictate the rest of her life. She said she is happy with me and with the life we have. I told her I have been wondering how life would have been if our kid were alive. She looked at me, her face unreadable, and said that we had made peace with it a long time ago. That digging up the past wouldn't help anyone, that some things were better left alone. She said it the same way she always has, calm, steady, and sure. But I can't help but wonder if Lucas told me the truth. What if he is my son? But that would mean I have been lied to all this time. That cannot be possible either. Am I wrong in doubting my wife for something like this? Should I just tell her what happened? I don't know what to do. Comments? Cakewalk. I for one think that the kid is telling the truth. What he did to find you takes years. He probably had to look for you for months. That is not something you do out of a hunch. He is sure that you are his dad, and I'm sure he isn't lying about it. The way he reacted and the things he said. Plus, he didn't want anything from you. He just wanted to know why you left him. That is consistent with how abandoned kids feel. You should question your wife or try to find out the truth. What bait 1? It's been over 2 weeks, and you are not going to believe what I found out. I hadn't been able to sleep since the day that boy walked up to me and said he was my son. I tried telling myself it was a mistake, a weird coincidence, or some elaborate scam. But I couldn't shake the feeling he was telling the truth. I felt bad about doubting my family. But then I thought that if I just found the answer, I would be fine. So I started digging. At first, it was just hospital records. I requested the documentation from the night my son was born. I didn't tell Vanessa. I didn't want to worry her. Or maybe I didn't want to give her a chance to shut it down, but the records weren't what I expected. The time when I first found out my son died, I stopped thinking. I didn't look at things or check anything. Now that I was looking at the records, it looked very suspicious. Nothing was recorded. Well, the report gave almost no information about what happened. It was kind of vague, and it didn't have a death certificate either. I spoke to a nurse friend, someone who's worked in delivery for years. She told me that stillbirths usually come with a full chart and a death certificate, especially when the baby was developed enough to be viable. There should have been forms, consent signatures, a process. But in my case, everything just ended. That's when I started to get worried because until that point, all of it was just a tiny possibility. But the more I dug, the more real things got. I went to the county records office, tried to request a copy of the death certificate. They couldn't find one, said there was no registered death under that name or date. I asked them to check again. Same answer. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went looking for Lucas. He hadn't left a number, but he'd been smart enough to bring documentation when he confronted me. I remembered a few details from the papers he showed me, enough to track down an adoption agency name and start connecting the dots. It took hours and a few calls that felt like fishing blindfolded. But eventually I found someone who knew him, a volunteer at the youth center where he hangs out. I told them I just needed to talk. They were skeptical, but they gave him my message. He met me later that evening in the same cafe. I told him about everything I have been through. I told him that if what I fear is true, then I have been lied to for 13 years by my own family. I told him if I were actually his father, then I was sorry for not being there. But I didn't know. I tried to convince him that I had no idea this had happened. He didn't believe me, not completely, but he listened. I told him what I'd found. The missing death records, the inconsistencies. The fact was that I had no reason to question the story I'd been told. But now I couldn't stop questioning it. He said he didn't know what to think. Maybe I was telling the truth, or maybe I was just good at pretending. But he agreed to help me prove what he already knows. He agreed to take a DNA test. He said that if the test comes back negative, he was going to apologize for making me go through all this. But he also said that he is willing to bet everything he has on the fact that I am his father. Whether I knew or not is a different issue, but I am his father. He was that confident. We took the test that night. I barely slept waiting for the results. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little blue blanket we bought for a baby I never got to meet. I remembered sitting in the nursery wondering what kind of father I would have been. And then the results came in. My wife lied to me. My parents lied to me. Lucas is my son. I don't even know how to process this. The son I thought I had lost was alive all this time. Someone decided to take my child away and erase him from my life. I'm going to find out why Wepweb ate too. It's been 3 days since I got the results and I haven't said a word to Vanessa. It's so hard to believe that she did something like that to me and her own son. I wanted to grab her neck and ask her why she made me go through all this for so many years when our son was alive and well. I look at her and I don't see the woman I married anymore. I see a stranger who kept my son from me. I see someone who looked me in the eye for over a decade and let me grieve a child who was still out there. But before I confront her, I need to be absolutely sure about how far this lie went. I wanted to know how she pulled this off and why did my parents, who I assumed knew about this, not once tell me that my son was alive. So, I called my parents. They were there the day Lucas was born. They were the ones who met me at the hospital and who told me what had happened, who cried with me, who hugged me, who told me to be strong, who never once let it slip that maybe, just maybe, they weren't telling the truth. I asked them to meet me at their house. I didn't want Vanessa knowing, not yet. I needed to do this alone. When I arrived, they looked worried. I didn't even have to say anything at first. I just sat there gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. Then I asked them a single question. Why did they lie? I think they had been having nightmares about this day, because they immediately understood what I was talking about. They didn't even pretend to act confused. My mother Margaret looked down. My father Ethan let out a long, shaky breath. Then they told me everything. You are not going to believe this. My wife didn't want a son. Apparently, it was something she made very clear to them during her pregnancy, just not to me. She had this dream of a daughter, a little girl she could bond with, raise, and shape. She believed a son wouldn't give her the life she imagined. My mother said Vanessa was obsessed with the idea that boys grow up distant and cold, that they don't stay close to their parents, that they become burdens. At first, they didn't take her seriously, but then she started saying darker things. She told them that if the baby were a boy, she wouldn't keep him. That if I tried to make her, she'd leave me. And worse, she'd take the baby and ruin both of our lives. She made it sound like a threat. My parents panicked. They were scared she was going to do something to herself and endanger the baby if they told me. They said they were scared I'd lose everything. If she left and took the baby, I might never see my child again, and the damage it would do to me would be far worse. Vanessa already knew that it was going to be a boy, so she had planned everything in advance, and my parents helped her. They helped her give my son away. They said they thought they were protecting me, that they believed she'd follow through on her threat, that they thought it was better to lose a child I never knew than to have my life torn apart by custody battles and hatred. They said that since I didn't know anything, it was up to them to make that decision. And they made it even though it hurt them deeply. They said it was very tough to see me in so much pain. They really believed that it was the better way. But after years of seeing me like this, they started doubting their decision. But they were too far gone to do anything now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents, the people I trusted the most, stood by and helped take my child from me. They let me cry. They let me grieve, and they never said a word. I asked them why they didn't come clean even once. Even after all these years, my mom said it was because I looked so broken that day at the hospital that they thought I'd never survive knowing what really happened. That I'd blame them, that I'd hate them. They were right about that last part. I told them I don't blame them. I told them I don't know how to ever forgive this, that I would have given anything to raise my son. Even if it meant fighting for custody, even if it meant raising him alone, I would have fought. I would have never given up. They took that choice from me. And the worst part, they didn't do it because they believed in her. They did it because they were afraid. Afraid of what she might do. Afraid of the fallout. Afraid of what I might become if things got messy. So, they let her decide. They handed over my son like it was a business transaction. I walked out of their house and didn't look back. Now I'm going to tell Lucas the truth. He deserves to know too. And then I am going to ask Vanessa, why did she ruin our lives like this? What way date 3? I confronted Vanessa. It's been a few days, and this is what happened. After I spoke to my parents, I met with Lucas and told him everything. I didn't sugarcoat it or try to defend anyone. I laid it all out. How Vanessa didn't want a son, how she gave him away without telling me, and how my parents helped cover it up. Every awful detail. He didn't say much while I talked, but the way his hands clenched told me he was holding back a storm. And who could blame him? I told him that he was right. He was abandoned, just not by me. I told him I spent 13 years mourning him, and even though I didn't get to be in his life, I am happy he is alive. That is the only positive thing I had about this whole thing. He just shook his head and said that it all made sense now. Why were his adoption records sealed? Why were there gaps in his history that no one would talk about? Why deep down something had always felt off? I asked him if he believes me now. He said at this point, I can't be acting. I told him if he still doesn't, then now he will believe me. I asked him to come with me and hear me confront the person who did all this, Vanessa. When she was out, I took Lucas in and asked him to stay in a nearby room where he could hear everything from the hall. Vanessa then came in humming happy songs like always. She greeted me like nothing was wrong, like our entire life wasn't built on a lie. I told her we needed to talk, and this time, I didn't dance around it. I didn't hint or ask questions. I just told her straight. I told her our son found me and proved that he was still alive. I asked her why did she lie to me? Why did she make me go through all this? The moment I said his name, her whole body went still. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't pretend to be confused. She just went silent, like something in her had shut off completely. But I kept asking. I kept screaming that she kept me away from my son for 13 years. And now I may never even be able to be his dad. He thinks I abandoned him. She then spoke and said she had to. She had no other choice. She said she knew from the beginning that she couldn't raise a boy. The thought of having a son filled her with dread. She kept saying over and over that she was scared, that she never saw herself as the mother of a son, that she didn't believe she could love him. And she didn't want me to go through the pain she went through, so she chose not to tell me. I asked her why she didn't just tell me that. Why didn't she let me raise him? Why didn't she leave instead of destroying me? She said she never wanted to give me up. She would rather give up a son and lie to me than do that. She either wanted a daughter in our family or no child at all. That is why from the start she had convinced my parents to help. I told her how I grieved, how I sat in that nursery holding the blanket we bought, wondering what kind of dad I would have been, how I spent every year since wondering what I did wrong to deserve losing my son. And all she could say was that she thought it was the best choice for everyone but me, everyone but Lucas. She said she believed he'd have a better life. That maybe one day if I never found out, I'd move on and we'd be happy. But I didn't move on. I never did. I lived every day thinking I had failed as a father, when the truth was I was never even given the chance to try. She took that chance from me. I asked her if she ever felt guilty. If there was ever a single day when she looked at me and thought about telling the truth. She said she thought about it once or twice, but it was always easier to stay quiet. That broke me more than anything else. She looked me in the eye with tears in hers and said she was sorry, but it was too late for that. I told her I couldn't do this anymore. I told her the only reason I hadn't packed my things and walked out already was because I wanted to look her in the eye and hear the truth. And now that I had, there was nothing left to say. She started to cry. She begged me to listen. She said she sacrificed so much too, that she lost a child just like I did, that she lived with guilt every day. But guilt means nothing when you choose the crime. I told her I'd be filing for divorce, and then I asked her to get out of the home. Lucas came out and told her that he was glad she gave him up. He would have hated to have a mother like her. She was shocked, but she went back to begging me to listen. I told her we were done. She followed me down the hall saying she never stopped loving me, that she still wanted a life together, that we could get past this. But I can't come back from this. She is currently packing. She didn't just lie. She took my son and erased him from my life. She watched me break down, year after year, and said nothing. She robbed Lucas of his father and me of the only thing I ever really wanted. She doesn't get to come back from that. Update 4. It's been a month since I told Vanessa I wanted a divorce. She's tried everything since then. Crying, begging, promising to make it right. But none of it matters anymore. She can't give me back the 13 years I spent, believing my son was dead. She can't give Lucas the childhood he deserved. He spent so long thinking his parents didn't care about him. After my update, she refused to go out. She told me that she also went through everything I went through, that she didn't deserve this. I told her to get the hell out of my house. In the end, I had to throw her out with her stuff. A few days ago, the divorce papers were delivered. She hasn't signed them yet, but she will have to. She called me the moment she got them, sobbing, asking if we could talk again. She said she was scared, that she didn't want to be alone, that we could fix this. I told her the truth. I don't want to spend another second with her. I told her I regret marrying someone like her, that I wished I had stayed alone. The amount of pain she has caused me is unexplainable, and I will be much better without her. You know what the worst part is? I think she still doesn't fully understand what she did. She keeps saying she gave Lucas a better life, that she was scared, that she did what she thought was right. But none of that changes what happened. None of it gives me back the years I lost with my son. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking with Lucas when he asked me this. He asked if I would have kept him, even if it meant raising him alone or going through all the hassle Vanessa had promised to put me through. I told him the truth. Yes. 1,000 times. Yes. He didn't say anything for a long time after that, but when he finally looked up at me, he said it was the first time anyone had ever made him feel wanted. That wrecked me. I'm just happy he believes me now. I told him that I might never become the dad I always wanted to be, but I would love to build a relationship with him, if he's happy to have me. He told me that I went through as much pain as he did. He doesn't blame me a bit, and he cannot wait to build a relationship with me. We've been meeting almost every day, walking in the park, sharing stories, trying to bridge the 13-year gap that never should have existed. It's awkward sometimes, but it's also good. He's smart, kind, funny. He has my sarcasm and Vanessa's stubborn streak. He loves old cars and hates pineapple on pizza. He calls me Harold, not Dad. I don't push it. That word has weight, and I'm not going to demand it before he's ready. My parents have tried to reach out a lot. They've been texting, calling. My father even showed up at my front door once. I didn't answer. I'm not ready to see them. Maybe one day, but not now. Right now, they're just as guilty to me as Vanessa is. They were supposed to protect me. Instead, they helped erase my son from my life. And I don't think I'll ever fully forgive that. As for Vanessa, I don't know what she's going to do. I'm not even sure I care anymore. She made her choice 13 years ago. I'm finally making mine. Comments, hassle not. You absolutely did the right thing, original poster. Leaving that woman was the best decision. How could she do that to you? How did she give up her own son as a mother? A person like that should never be trusted. She took 13 years from you and your son. You had to start over because of her. Something like that can never be forgiven. Your parents are also to be blamed. They should never have let her do whatever she wants.